All right, guys. Today we have the frontman from the leading Australian, what do we say, death metal band of
Hello.
the last 10, 15, how many years now, Sam?
Oh, well, Daemon Pyre has been around for six, and before that I was in I guess, a melodic metalcore, death metal crossover band called Our Silence Breaks for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years before that.
Yeah, so, we're in royalty here, guys, and the reason for that is what they're saying is this is the last album. And my first question is this the last album?
Yeah, it's funny, this is intended to be the last record, because of a number of reasons. Like, I left the band a couple of years ago to focus on family and some career changes and some health challenges and a few other bits and pieces. And Simon, the rhythm guitarist, similarly had to refocus his priorities. And then Andy, the lead guitarist, he ended up relocating to the US. He got a big leadership position for an insurance company and relocated. So we all kind of spread out around the globe.
Let's leave insurance companies out of this. Hey?
Yeah. We'll get on to that later. But yeah, so we're all kind of spread around the planet, and focused their energies onto other things. But the guys sort of decided they were going to try and continue things, and find replacements and whatever else. And for whatever reason, that didn't work. And about, I don't know, 12 or 18 months ago, they contacted me and said, would I be interested in coming back just to do the record and finish off the second record that we'd started to work on, prior to my departure and prior to Simon's departure, and finish things off on a high note rather than sort of letting the band kind of limp on, without lots of different members and just using fillers and stuff like that. And yeah, I sort of ummed and ahed about it a little bit, but then the boys set it up in a way that it took a lot of the pressure off me, because back in the day I used to be the one that was sort of managing the admin, and I spent 80% of my time on the back end of the band and 20% of my time on the art and the fun and the creativity stuff, and I liked the idea of being able to come back in, write the lyrics, do the vocals, and enjoy the creativity and the music side of it, without any of the other pressure. And I also thought, I was really kind of humbled by the fact that my mates had, come back to me, and put their trust in me. Like, I kind of left them high and dry, like they understood it, and they understood why I had to leave and move away from music for a bit. I was 30 kilos heavier than I am now. I had to have hernia surgery. My wife and I had gone through a personal tragedy. We had kids. I just had a whole bunch of stuff I had to focus on, and I couldn't do that when I was spread so thin. So I walked away from the radio show I was running. I walked away from the band. Everything that I was doing outside of just having a job and focusing on family and health and career, I kind of walked away from. So when they asked me that, I thought, that really hit me from an emotional point of view, that they put their faith in me, and they had the courage to ask me that. And I thought, what, there's no reason why I can't make some time, to do that. So, I was just chuffed that they'd asked for me to be a part of it. And I thought that took a lot of courage on their part, and just was a true testament to the friendship that we'd created. So, long and short of it is, we all reconnected and started to work on a project that the boys had already been, steaming along with. I mean, some of the songs on the record had already been started literally immediately after the first album. So this record's coming out in 2020, but the first album came out in 2015, early 2015. So this album's been 5 odd years in the making. And really only got shelved because everybody kind of moved on and did different things. But we'd recorded 2 songs already years ago, and we'd released a video that Colin Jess up in Queensland had put together for us, just when his video company was kicking off. And he's an amazingly talented guy. He used to sing for Version's Crown. That's how I met him.
Oh, right.
He just did a great job on the video for the song Unto a Dying World. We did that with one producer, and then we did the rest of the other songs it was partly home recorded, self-produced, and then the guys went over to work with my old boss, Shane Edwards, who used to run Electric Sun, who now was at Karma Sound in Thailand, working with people like Hans Zimmer and crazy
wow,
A-list names like that. And so they went over and worked with him to track some other pieces. I stayed in Australia and worked with the other partner at Electric Sun, Dave, and did my vocals here in Sydney. We had two different drummers. We had Kevin Talley, who has drummed for like Suffocation and lots of big US bands.
Yeah, sure.
On a couple of the tracks, and then we had Dan Preslin from Near Oblivious do the other 8 tracks. He's a buddy of ours, and we've done some shows with guys over the years. And so it's this crazy, project that has lots of pieces to it.
Yeah.
But the end goal was, let's end on a high note with songs that we were really proud of, that we thought kind of pushed things into the next level after the next record, and leave on a high note. But at the same time, like, we all really enjoy working with each other, and now we know this kind of process works, and so far our fans and critics have actually been responding really well to the material. Who knows? I honestly can't say. I mean, the intention is, this is the end of it. This is the end of Daemon Pyre, and that's, as far as I'm aware, that's the situation. But who's to say that we don't all just get the itch and want to work with each other again in a few years' time?
I guess you never say never in life. It's just like a lot of the viewers and listeners probably won't know that Sam and I have probably known each other for 25 years, and have only reconnected on a podcast 25 years later in really different circumstances. But it's one of those things. Life's got different circumstances, which is why you had to leave the band, and then you got the opportunity to come and rejoin the band. So you just never really know. But I guess it must be really humbling when you see your band members go and produce or write an album and then have you in mind as the vocalist. Still, like you said, you left them kind of high and dry.
Absolutely.
And you own that, which is fantastic. And but when you hear your vocals in the album, it flows, and it's just perfect. It's the band that everybody knows and remembers really well, with some extra oomph, if I can say that.
I think, as I said, I credit a lot of that, to be honest, man, to the guys that write the music. Like, Andy is a fantastic songwriter. He has a clear vision for what he wants. Kyle, who was actually in my previous band, As Silence Breaks, and the one before that as well, Aventine Hill, and in the early days of what Daemon Pyre would become, he co-wrote a lot of the first album. Andy got him back in, and they sort of worked together on crafting much of this record. And Kyle's a prolific songwriter as well. There was sort of no rules with this record, because there wasn't really a band to speak of. There was no touring requirements. There was no live show commitments, really. There was at the tail end of things, but then as the thing was kind of coming to fruition, it was like, we can just do what we want. We can pick the drummer that we want, because the drummer that we had working with us at the time was a fantastic young guy, Simon. He's also in another band called To the Grave, and that had started to build up and kick off, and his priorities obviously were there. But the guys sort of just picked and chose who they wanted to work on it. And I think, really what they did from a music point of view informed much of what I did from a vocal point of view. In the past, as a vocalist and lyricist, I've often crafted stories where I had a particular message or a particular story I wanted to tell, and then the guys would write the music, and then I'd kind of find a way to take what the stories that I've written and put them into the music. With this, with the exception of the 2 tracks that we'd written previously, I listened to the music over and over and over as it was coming to be formed, and then I started to write the vocals. I had some ideas that I'd already started to work on, but I kind of scrapped most of them and went back to the drawing board. And I allowed the melodies and the rhythms and the concepts that the guys had built melodically to inform a lot of my lyrical choices, to the point that some of the songs on the record don't actually even have a clear message. It was more esoteric than that. And I kind of I really enjoyed that, actually, because I've always been interested in, I guess, academic and philosophical, areas of interest and inquiry. And so that's obviously informed a lot of my my lyrical creation, but the idea of letting the songs speak to me and then being more artistic and creative in a free way, I'd just never done it that way. And I personally believe that that's probably why the vocals ended up in my opinion, probably the best ones I've ever delivered.
Mate, they're amazing. They're amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, I credit most of that to the guys and the songs that they had built. Obviously, a big chunk of credit has to go to people like Dave Petrovic, the vocal engineer that worked with me. I worked with Dave on heaps of stuff before, and
sure,
he knows how to get the best out of me. And
he's a legend too. He's a
legend. Yeah, and then of course Shane as well, as the mix and mastering engineer overseas. Shane I've known literally since I was 19 years old, because he used to run a recording studio out of a rehearsal space that we used to go to. Yeah, guys in our late teens kicking off in bands, and again just knows how to get the best out of all of us. So yeah, I'm really, as a vocalist and as a lyricist, I'm really happy with the end product, and thankfully it seems like people are also enjoying it too.
Mate, the reviews have already been coming back great, so you've got to be stoked with that. But me personally, listening to it and knowing you personally, and even knowing you from a personal level from back in the day, and if I can say this, managing you as a staff member, if I don't know how to say that, for those of you that don't know, I used to work at an insurance company with Sam maybe 25 years ago, and we always had this same connection with music, and we always knew we'd somehow end up in the music industry, me in the media, and him actually being the musician, because I've got no idea about how to play any instrument, so that's why I ended up in the media. But for me, when I'm listening to you, Sam, it sounds like it's like a relaxed Sam. It's like a Sam that's real content. It's like a Sam that's just doing what he loves to do without any pressure. Is that how did it feel for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, going into it, I was a little apprehensive that I hadn't, been in a recording studio for a while. I was worried that I'd be a little bit out of condition from a vocal point of view, and because obviously, I pretty much spent almost 17 straight years in bands, just back to back. I'd never had a break. I'd gone from one to the next, like one band would kind of wrap up and the next one would kick off, and at one point I was in two at the same time.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you get to know your voice well enough, because you're rehearsing, 2-3 times a week in the studio, 3-4 hours at least a night. And then you're playing shows every other weekend. You're going on tour. You might go overseas once a year or twice a year. And you get to a point where you get to trust your voice. And I was worried that wouldn't be there. But sure. I think the crazy thing about having that break, if anything, was that my voice was fresh. It wasn't tired from touring. From juggling, the 40-hour day job, 40-hour week day job, as well as, the radio show that I was doing and the other bits and pieces, and being a dad and being a husband and everything else. So it kind of did allow me to try some things too. Like, so vocally, some of the stuff on the record was lower and heavier than I've ever been able to get. Some of it was much higher. So there's a number of tracks where I tried to allow my love for guys like Tomas from Out the Gates and Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder to kind of sneak in there. So there's a lot of higher stuff in there. But then I tried to, like, even on one of the tracks, I tried to go a bit old school and go a bit Chuck Billy, like, old school Testament style, with a sort of more of a yell. So yeah, I think, the whole project, where I was at with life, the lack of pressure that I felt, probably certainly did help in that respect.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. And looking at some of the singles that you've already released, and they've got some great feedback. And are you guys looking at touring off the back of some of these singles and the album release, or what's the story there? Or you guys haven't decided, or is it in discussion?
No, we basically, when we sat down with Chris, our publicist, and we said there's no touring off the back of this. So effectively, all the press that's gone out is there's no touring, there's no live shows, there's no physical release. It's just, here's the music on Spotify and Apple and Google and YouTube and whatever. Grab it the cheapest possible way that you can, and enjoy it and share it around. Because as what
I mean, if you stop there for a second, so if I can interrupt you, but that's a real refreshing way to hear someone talk about music. Just grab it and enjoy it and love it.
I think when the pressure's not there for it to deliver revenue, because we all have jobs. It's not us 10, 15, years ago as younger guys trying to transition from a day job into a musical career. It's us as guys who are older and now have, financial stability, saying we just want to write, we just want to make music because we enjoy it, which is what you start, you're 15 years old, cranking out Metallica covers. That's what, that's why you do it. So, I don't know if it's anything to do with, anything special on our part. We just were like, and this is mostly Andy and Chris and the guys having a plan about how they wanted to deliver it. And I agree. I think if there's no requirement for it to, return dividends, then you can just go, if this is the swan song that people are describing it as, then just, you want as many people to hear it as possible. Because we, like, even down to the point where, like, using our publicist, Chris Marek, we're like, do we even need a publicist? Like, what's the point? If we're not going to tour it and there's no physical release, then what's the point of having a publicist? And then Andy made the solid point that, but we've put all this effort, you want as many people to hear it as you can. So why not use a publicist? Why not spend a couple of dollars so that it gets into the ears of as many people as possible? And definitely upon reflection, he was 150% correct, because, with mainstream publications like The Music and stuff have reviewed it, and people overseas are getting in touch. And we've even had people in the last couple of days say, do you want to do a tour? Do you want to get some merch? So that was really refreshing to know that it still is resonating, even though there is no intention to tour it. That being said, like Andy and I had a chat.
There's no promise, though.
Sorry.
There's no intention, but there's no promise.
Yeah, look, we were supposed to do an international support run not long before I left the band, and it all fell to pieces, obviously, partly because of me leaving, and I think the tour got pushed back for a couple of reasons as well. But we all, like Andy and I spoke the other night, and we sort of thought, you know what, maybe if in a year or two's time, he might be able to get a holiday and escape from San Francisco and come back to Australia for a few weeks. We might be able to
get him,
have a jam, and maybe even see if we can finagle, a couple of support slots with a band that we look up to, and maybe tour the record a little bit. But at the moment, as I said, for the immediate future, well, for the medium to long-term future, there is no plans to tour it. That's just sort of honest guy thinking. So.
But if you're thinking about the sort, because when I listened to the album and I listened to a couple of your previous albums, stylistically, you guys have almost gone like, we don't really, in my head, I'm like, these guys have just gone and just not jammed, but they've gone and written songs that they've just wanted to write, not write to sell, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Because when I listen to it, I'm like, this is so different to the song previously, but it still gels, if that makes sense. Yeah,
like, I know, as corny as this sounds, because I think a lot of bands and a lot of music critics and stuff will use this kind of terminology, but I think that it is an evolution on the last record, in a positive way, as far as I can tell. And I think that's probably because, as I said, you've got two distinctly different songwriters working together, being Kyle and Andy. Simon obviously also brought some material in, our rhythm guitarist, and Matty, the bass player, as well. But Kyle and Andy kind of drove much of the sort of the majority of the creative forces behind it. And like, Andy's an old school thrasher, and an old school death metal fan. Like, he's, he loves Morbid Angel and early Gojira records, and Anthrax and Slayer and stuff like that. And so that's where Andy comes from, and he's played with a multitude of Australian bands over the years. Like, he's been in bands like Psychor, and he was in Mortal Sin as a touring guitarist.
Wow. Yeah.
He was in Days End for a while. Like, he's kind of been around the traps. He's a tried and true, musician. And and songwriter in every sense of the word. And then Kyle, who, as I said, has been in multiple bands with me before, you know, he'll jam Cult of Luna for like 3 hours straight, and then chuck on Norma Jean or The Chariot. Like, he has really great eclectic taste as well. And so when you kind of get those two boys together, they have this bizarre synergy, you know, this bizarre ability to work together, despite the fact that their tastes can be quite different. But I think that's what's led to a record that sounds the way that it does. How we've got, you know, acoustic interludes. We've got one song with this great, a string arrangement that was done by this awesome audio composer called Brad Gentle from here in Sydney, who's a mate at Andy's. And yeah, I think that's really what led to the album sounding refreshing and unique, that you've got these two guys that, despite the fact that they're what they would chuck on any other day of the week, it tends to be fairly different. There's a sweet spot in the middle where they kind of meet up on, you know, influences that they agree on, and sounds that they agree on. And I think that really helps to build something that sounds a little bit different from everything else. So we've had, on the one hand, people saying that it sounds very much like our sound is informed by, you know, bands like Insomnium, and, you know, a lot of that sort of soundscape, you know, Finnish, a lot of death metal stuff. And then we've got people saying it sounds like Out the Gates. And then, you know, we've had other comparisons to some of the old school stuff. It's really cool. And I think that's sort of why, even for us as members of the band, it feels like a little bit of a breath of fresh air, and hopefully, music fans will enjoy that as well.
Yeah, well, me just as a listener and not a musician, you know what I mean? So I can't talk in relation to some of the technicalities about what you're discussing, but I can listen to it from front to end without even thinking about it. You know, I don't want to skip a song. I don't want to think about doing that. And I've been lucky enough to get the album earlier than most. So, you know, that's the benefits of sort of working in the media. But it's one of those things that you should be proud of. And sometimes I think you're exactly right. What you said earlier is sometimes when the pressure's lifted and, like you said, there's no density value or dollar value to it, it almost puts that pressure level down. So you can intensify what you need to do, or you can say, we're going to really push this button on this song because it doesn't actually matter. We're going to really crank it up and give it a crack.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah, and I think art in the most general sense, you know, whether it's literature or film or you know, songs or stories or whatever, it doesn't start as a business pursuit. It starts as a passion. It starts as emotion and drive, and then obviously out of necessity becomes something else. But where it starts at its core, if you're doing it for the right reasons,
yes,
and you're being driven by, you know, the love and the passion for it, when you get back to that, I definitely think it allows things to shine through, because you're just not, there's no deadline to worry about, there's no pressure for it to sound a certain way.
That's right.
So at the ripe old age of 36, finally figured that out.
No, that's good. And what about you yourself? You have taken some time away, which has been fantastic for you personally. You've obviously grown as a person. What sort of things can you say to the Daemon Pyre fans for yourself, and how you've taken the time off? Obviously, it was a bit of a shock at that time when you left and all that sort of stuff. So, is there a message that you'd probably like to send to say to those fans that might want to hear something?
I guess thanks for sticking around. Like when I put the announcement out there that I was stepping away, it was really interesting, like in terms of the social media and the, you know, the circles that you're running.
Sure.
There was a lot of people I'd known and come to know through being in Daemon Pyre. There was like a really great crew of people that would just come to shows all the time and buy our shirts and wear them proudly. And like there's this one guy that I know who's a fantastic bloke. Like even his son, who was only, I don't know, 9, 10 or something at the time, they'd come to shows and they wear shirts, and
nice.
That stuff's really cool, you know. And then because I was doing the radio show with CJ, I also had this other sort of community that were getting to know myself and obviously most of them already knew CJ because he's a megastar.
Yeah.
And us doing the show together, there was a sort of different crowd, and all of them collectively sort of reached out and offered well wishes and that sort of stuff, and were very encouraging. And I think for those that knew why I'd stepped back from music, they were just very supportive of why. And as I said, even down to the fact that, you know, I was 30 kilos heavier than I am now, and having just people, you know, a year later reaching out and saying, hey, you look good, man, or, you know, you look like you're healthy or whatever. That was really encouraging. So to the people out there that sent me messages and stuff, I just say thank you. And for the Daemon Pyre fans that still crank stuff, you know, like we were having a chuckle that, like, when we were working with Chris talking about how the record would come out, we were looking at Spotify and we had like 53 monthly listeners on Spotify, and we're like, we're actually blown away. We're like, wow, we haven't done anything for ages, and there's still like 50 people who monthly want to listen to Daemon Pyre, and our first record. And then that jumped up to like 1,300 monthly listeners in the last couple of weeks, which is cool to see that people are listening to the new record. But yeah, man, I guess, as I said, all you can ever say to people that take the things that you create that very much are an extension of, you know, you, and enjoy them and interpret them whatever way that they choose to do so, is thank you. You know, and really that's all you can say is, you know, very much from the bottom of our hearts, thanks that you enjoy it and thanks that you give a shit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's I don't think there's any better way to end it than that sort of stuff, unless there's any other sort of announcement, anything you wanted to sort of anything else you wanted to say to anyone. That's fine, but from my end, it was good to reconnect with an old friend again after 25 years. Good to see you, mate. But also good to see you in such great shape, in such great spot with your family and with music and all that sort of stuff. So it's just amazing how it's all sort of come together for you. So congratulations, good on you.
Awesome, thanks, Pete, man. It was really good to talk to you.
Yeah, all right, mate. Congratulations. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.